Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be in Donner Boekhandel with Mr. Guillermo Arriaga to talk about his latest novel that just came out this spring in the Dutch translation. I want to mention the translators because it's always something that's been underappreciated. The immense amount of work translators do to uh, to translate in a very short time colossal books. And it's a teamwork because if three women and one man, it's like always. Corine van den Broek, Annette van der Heijden, Christina Nikiulu, and Peter Valkenet. And they not only did a very thorough translation of the book, but um, it's also a translation that reads. You can smell prison life. Uh, uh, you can smell the corruption. You can smell the desert. You can smell a lot of things in this book, isn't it, Mr. Arriaga?
First of all, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for the bookstore. Abdelkader, thank you very much for being here with me. And I must tell that one of the translators unfortunately passed away. She translated while she was having cancer. So for me, it's a special translation because it was, I think, the last work of Christine. So I just want to honor her work here, her hard work here. I mean, it's a pity. I met her uh, 2 years ago while I was promoting the Otembari. So that's it.
Yeah. So Holland. I mean, I read somewhere that Holland is an important country for you.
How is important?
Holland, Netherlands, is an important country for you for
It's
your work.
it's very important for me. Fortunately, the Otembare became like kind of a bestseller, and I was really happy by the reception of the book by the Dutch readers. Very much. And this is a I have been to Holland like 12 times. So basically every 2 years
Yeah,
I come to Holland.
yeah. So now you wrote this huge novel. It's a love story. It's a prison story. It reminded me in a lot of ways of a 19th century book, the Conte of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, about going from neighborhoods with big social economical issues to prison, then the prison as a microcosmos, and literature as a way of escape for mental escape, but also escape from the material surroundings. But it's also a hunting story. It also reads like a Netflix Narcos film. There's so much in this book. It's also a book that has deep reflections on dance, on modern dance. It reminds of also Madame Bovary of Flaubert, because you have Marina, who is a very very complicated, complex character. Especially the last 100 pages were for me very very difficult to read. In her whole werdegang, as we say, I mean the decisions she takes. I'm not going to do any spoilers here. You have to read it. But I understood that you wrote this book without knowing what you were going to write.
Yeah, I don't know how you write your books.
Well, I have some idea, but it's I have some idea. I always start with a sentence. For me, the most important thing is the sentence. I have one first sentence, and that gets me going.
That the same for me. I have a very thin idea what I want to tell in one sentence. And I don't know if it happens to you, but it's like someone is dictating me the novel because I have no idea. I know that serious writers they plan, they put stickers everywhere,
Yeah.
and they know exactly who the characters are, and they know how it's gonna end. I have no idea at all, and I never do any kind of research.
So let's start at the beginning. You had one sentence. What was the
Yeah,
sentence?
well, no, I have a very thin I outline. It was very wealthy woman goes to prison. She meets an inmate, and everything turns around
Yeah.
in her life.
And when did you get that idea?
I have no idea. I think someone told me about a married woman that fell in love with a with a prisoner, and I think that was the idea of the
It's a well-known fact that murderers get a lot of love letters from women
yes.
and also from men, by the way.
And I found out after writing the novel that many wealthy married women they have lovers inside the prison,
Really?
and they some of them say they are the perfect lovers because they will not go out to make a drama. They will not go and ring in your house and talk to your husband. They are like, and they say I decide when I see them and I decide what I want to do. So they have the perfect control of the male lover.
And it's like in the novel, they go inside the prison and they have these privileges and they pay for it and they
Yeah, in the third world country there are many privileges for people who have money.
yeah.
You can have a 5-star hotel room inside the prison, or you can. Yesterday, I went to a prison here in Holland. Very, nothing to do with the Mexican prisons, and I was telling that the inmates that they are so crowded that they are guys they call them the vampires
Yeah.
because they wrap themselves in sheets and they hang. They sleep like
In the ceiling.
yes, because there's no there's so crowded that they cannot
Oh.
lie. Everyone's sleeping on the floor, so there's no space for them. So they sleep.
What brought you to the Dutch prison yesterday? You were invited to give a lecture?
And I was invited to hear the stories of the prisoners. It was very interesting
Okay.
what they say, why they they are in a writing workshop
Yeah.
with Christine Olsen,
Christine Otter, yes. Christine Otter, yes.
and
She does
she
this writing workshops with inmates. Yes.
yeah,
Wonderful work.
and was very interesting really. And they read me their poems or their prose or their dreams or their thoughts. Every one of them read them in English. When they didn't write it in English, they translated me. But it was really interesting.
It's the same as in the book, in the novel. There's also this project in the prison of writing.
Yeah, it's a person not writing. But I want to tell you, it's not only a book about prison. It has to do, as you say,
Well,
about a lot of things. It has to do with love. It has to do with art. There are some reflections on art that I think that every one of us change on how we see art and how art, and I saw it this yesterday, can change the life of a prisoner and what means talent and the stories about a very wealthy, extremely wealthy woman who is a choreographer. She's married with 3 kids, and she goes to the prison to have a show with her company. And she found this criminal, but she goes to prison until page 300. So there's a lot of things going on the first 300 pages.
so let's talk about Marina. Because you use it. There's so many microcosmoses in the book. It's like really 19th century Tolstoyan novel. I mean that you meet a lot of characters, but not only the characters, but you're also in their world into in deep detail with sometimes uh, there's action, but there's also deep reflection on actually the nature of art. And Marina is interesting person because she wants to be great. She's from an extremely wealthy family, very privileged. She has this dance company. She's very ambitious. She has dreams of becoming more than than the cliches, but she doesn't go she it doesn't work because she in a way her work feels artificial, feels not. And then she meets this prisoner Jose, and Jose breaks, is in a way touches something in her that translates in her work, and her work becomes much more aggressive. And then she comes with the idea of bringing her group to the prison to perform this very, I'm not going to into detail because you have to read this, this dance, this kind of sacre de printemps, you know, this with very physical, bloody almost, and well, very bloody actually. How do you, how did, how does this work? I mean, going into the world of the prison is difficult, but how did you do research, or how did you find your way into the work of a dance company?
I have no idea of contemporary dance. I invented everything. But let me
No, no,
tell
no.
you.
I cannot believe it. There has to be some YouTubing going on, or some interneting going on.
No,
Some,
but I must tell you something. I was a very good friend of a guy called Alberto Almeida, which I use his name
yeah.
in the novel, who was one of the most important ballet teachers. And so he regularly talked to me about ballet. And Guillermo Arriaga is the most famous choreographer in Latin America. It's not me.
No.
It's an anonymous man who already died. He right now he will be the age of the Queen,
Uh,
97. He died 5 years ago, but since we have the same name, we met. We have lunch or dinner.
he's Mexican too.
So he talked to me about, and he was the most important choreographer in contemporary dance.
Okay.
So I do not make any research, but
Yeah.
talking to them, I learned.
Yeah.
And Margot Fontaine say that ballet was box in the
Oh,
ballet.
Spitzen. Yeah.
Yes, but I have been a boxer, so I know how box is. So I say I I will write as a boxer. And the ballet dancers and dancers, they have ampollas. How you say ampollas? Blisters. They have blisters and they have blood and
Yeah.
it smells
Yeah.
and so
There you saw the connect. There you got there you got in a way. You find out there's a connection, and that makes you right.
yes.
Mm.
So I have the connection between box, my friends, and the writing, but I have no idea of contemporary dance. I must confess.
Okay. Okay. Have you been into a prison
I
in
have been.
Mexico City?
I went to prison after I write the book. I do not make any kind of research, but I have been throughout of my life where I grew up. I have been in touch with former
Yeah.
prisoners, so the things they tell me about prison, I use it.
Yeah.
I use it to write.
Well, let's go more into Marina. Marina, she's from had this very privileged family. Is a choreographer, very ambitious. She's a woman. Did you? Was it your man? Was there something of excitement or anxiety in writing from a female's perspective?
I think that my goal as a writer is that I'm gonna risk in every one of my books.
Yeah.
I want to level the risk, um, and writing as a woman is a very big risk. And I,
You felt this for yourself.
yeah, I knew that if I write as a woman in first person, it was going to be a risk.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in Mexico, most of women say, "Yeah, you sound like a woman." And I write in first person, trying to really get into the skin of
Yeah.
a woman. And the good thing is, I write text like if they were prisoners writing in the workshop, and most people, even the prisoners, because when I went later to a prison, thought they were real.
Yeah.
So
I also thought they were real. They were real prisoners who wrote those texts.
no, they are all invented by me. So writing as a woman was,
But
and writing not only as a woman, but what a woman feels sexually. And as I told you, I think someone is dictating me the film, not the film, the book. Sorry,
okay.
I sometimes feel that I'm just a vessel, a ship where I am just the vehicle of stories.
How long did it take you to write this novel?
4 years
4 years.
and a half.
And I read somewhere you don't need a working place. You write everywhere.
I write everywhere.
Just yeah, yeah.
I used to be very ritualistic, that I have my studio and I need music and relax. But right now, my life is so hectic that I write in taxis, in bus stations, in trains, in planes.
You like to write in planes.
I love to write in planes, especially when I come from Mexico to Europe, because there's no internet that's gonna distract me. So I have 10 hours of writing.
And you write for 10 hours.
I write for 10 hours. I write 10 to 12 hours daily.
Is it, I sometimes the sometimes I have this flights and I have to write a column, and then I'm take my laptop, and then I'm like, I do not want to see the one sitting next. I don't want the one next to me to see what I'm writing, because it feels a little bit voyeuristic that he sees the creative process. So I try to always put the laptop like a bit like this, so
Uh-huh.
that the person is not distracted by what I'm doing, because I feel that when he sees what I'm doing, then it will just it will stop the flow.
Nah, I don't care. They can see whatever they want. They can peek and see what I'm writing, and I will have a discussion. What do you think about it? You can be the first critic
Really,
of my book. Yeah, and I give my writing to many people, so that I will see what they are thinking about
what
while I am writing it.
what is the most special place you wrote? The most interesting place that you a toilet,
Well, I write in taxis.
taxis.
Yes. And sometimes I go through very dangerous parts, for example, in Bogota, in Colombia, or even Mexico City. So it's like every time we're going to the stoplight, I put the laptop beneath the seat. When we go, there's a green light, I come back with my laptop. And yes, I write everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know how I concentrate, but I learn to concentrate writing everywhere.
Yeah. The book tells the stories from various perspectives. So there's Marina, there's Jose, there's the brother of Jose, there's the stories of the inmates. Um, how does it work in changing perspective? How do you work out first one perspective, or do you jump from one to another according to the rhythm, or according to the plot driven story?
I write the book as you read it. I write it like that because that's the rhythm. So I'm writing this has a first person, which is a woman. Then I have a second person, which is the brother of the male character of the prisoner, telling, uh, talking to his father in the cemetery. He goes to the cemetery to talk to his father and say, "Dad, you did this to us, and that, blah blah blah." And there's a third person that tells the story of the male character written in malandro. That means in slang.
Yeah,
It's very slang.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know how they
Yeah,
did
they
it.
did it. They did it very well. Yeah,
They did
yeah,
it well.
yeah. They did it very well. Yeah. Um, what drove you to write this book? Is it also is it does it has something of uh, it's anger, or about the system, about the political social system, the corruption, the nepotism of Mexican society, and also the immense distance of the normal the working people and the bourgeoisie, which is, I mean, I'm converging from Morocco, which is also a Moroccan thing, that you have this bourgeoisie or upper class that's in not only in a bubble, but they're like almost like in a prison of themselves, with their own definition of freedom, and they have and then comes nothing, and then comes nothing, and then comes society. And it's sometimes like, for me, it's like when I because I'm very much used to egalitarian society like Holland. When I go to Morocco, I'm sometimes so shocked by how far those people are from. It doesn't mean that they're not Moroccan, because they can feel very, very Moroccan, but they're just not in connection at all with the rest of the population.
I think it happens in the third world. I think that, for example, Holland, it's a more
It's super egalitarian, yeah, compared to
it's a more egalitarian society, and the third world, it's corruption, nepotism, impunity, and the wealthy people in our countries, they are like living in a fantasy. They You can be in Mexico City and never see poverty. You can go to beautiful places and beautiful shopping malls and beautiful buildings and the greatest restaurants,
Yeah.
and this book become the most it was the first the not the first place, it was the best-selling book in the number one place for a year and a half almost in Mexico. And most of the readers come the from the wealthy class in Mexico, and they say like, well, I didn't imagine it was going on this in Mexico.
Mm.
It's like we were completely devoid of reality.
And is it because there are no books written about it? Is it because they live so insular?
No, the high class in Mexico lives completely
Yeah,
isolated of
yeah,
what's going on on the rest of Mexico. I think that it happens in Morocco also. It happens in Brazil. It
yeah,
happens in Colombia.
yeah,
It's a great
yeah.
difference between.
And it seems sometimes, I don't know if you did you experience that they also they said to you, why did you choose this subject? Didn't you have another subject to choose? Why did you write about poverty?
It's not the sub. I I did not choose the subject. The subject
Yeah,
chose me.
that's your answer then. Yeah,
I have no idea why
yeah.
suddenly I decided to write about the book.
And then during the writing, because I think you didn't think, oh, I'm now going to write a 900 pages book. You were just writing the story, and then on the way it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Did you panic?
No, because I learned that in literature size matters.
So you were happy. You were like, wow, it's
Yeah, I don't know. I wrote the Otembare, my previous book, which fortunately did well here in Holland. And I said I'm gonna write a short novel.
yeah, yeah.
This is I thought it was gonna be 100 pages, and look,
You were thinking, you were like, oh, 100 pages, that's the horizon.
yeah, it had Viagra on Turbo Viagra when I was writing it, and it's even larger than the Otembare,
Yeah,
like 30% larger than the Tembari. And I thought I was gonna, I say I'm gonna write a small
yeah,
novel and polish because I want to go in the wave of the
yeah.
success of the other book.
And then though it's big, it does not read like a big novel. It's very. I mean, This was my summer reading, and I was.
Thank you.
It was like I was at the beginning because the book was given to me. I will tell you how, by the director of the Cobra Museum in Amstelveen, Stefan van Rij. I did a exhibition there, Moroccan art, and he is based in Mexico City. He lives in Mexico City, uh, and at the start of the summer, he gave me your book. He said, Abdelkader, you have to read this book, and then when you finish this book, you have to write a book. And I gave it. I said, "You read this," and I gave it. And he's a very good reader, so every book he gives, I take it serious, and I took it with me, and it was like, stop. I was like, because it has. You're a hunter, and it has something. It's something is being hunted in the book. People are hunted, but there's also a lot of hunting, and it's very exciting to be part of that hunt. Though there are a lot of victims, and there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of violence in the book, but it's also a little bit exciting to be part of that violence.
Yeah, there's a lot of violence, but there's also a lot of love. There's also a lot of friendship. There's very strong friendships, and there's a lot of art. And that people have been asking me if Mexico is that violent. I say, not all of Mexico. You can live in Mexico City really without being robbed or nothing. For example, my son was robbed for the first time in Canada and then for the second time in Paris,
Yeah,
never in Mexico. And violence. Every country has its breaking point. I was in Germany, and a journalist told me You live in a very barbarian country. And I say, you, a German, are telling me, youth that killed 25 million are telling me this?
Yeah,
Every country has a breaking point.
yeah,
German has, imagine if Germany have a breaking point, which for me is the highest point of culture. They have Goethe, Mozart, Nietzsche, all these great thinkers and writers and musicians. It become a barbarian country. Imagine a third world country like mine.
yeah, yeah. So you say is in a way he is exemplary for this tension between the life in the street, but also intelligent mind. If he was, he comes from a very destructive family, brilliant father. Um, that in itself, it's fascinating. This father son relationship. Um, but you always think you say in a way, if he was, if he had grown up in a loving family, he would have become a very talented writer. But it didn't happen because of circumstances.
Yeah, the character is the son of native Mexican, an Indian, and this Indian comes from a very poor family, and he becomes a self-made intellectual. And he says education is the only thing that's going to save me from racism. So he becomes an activist. He learns languages, and he pushes his two sons and his daughter to go to the highest point of intellectual thinking, and he destroys them in his pursuit of making this the Superman in the Nietzschean way. He destroys his kids, so he becomes a murderer.
Yeah,
And the first person the character murders is his own father. But he speaks German, he speaks English, he speaks Latin, he speaks three Indian
he
dialects.
hates the United States of America.
The father hates the United States of America because he says that there's a genocide in the United States, and he's an Indian. He said that. So
Is this character totally fiction, or does it have? Are there activist intellectuals in Mexico? I've been to Mexico. I traveled Mexico. I can imagine that there are native Mexicans intellectuals who have this ideology. It's because he himself is also almost himself almost like supremacist lecturer.
yeah, what you know something? I am an advisor for the Aboriginals in Australia and for the Maori in New Zealand, which, by the way, has a situation very close to the Mexican
Mm.
Indians. And the most ferocious activists, I know them with the Aboriginals in Australia. So I I mix Mexican activists with Australian activists,
Yeah,
with Maori activists, with all these thinking, and Europeans, they really destroyed many original populations.
yeah,
In the United States, they almost wiped them out. In Mexico, was in Australia they really committed also genocide. In Argentina,
yeah,
so they share this in common.
yeah. What's the character in the book that's closest to you?
I think all of them. I think I don't know if it happens to you, but for me, like every one of them are my kids. And as Faulkner says, you have to love your characters as a mother loves the same his lawyer son and his murderer son.
Yeah,
You have to love them all. So I'm not identified with any one of them. I love all of my characters. Um, I think it's important to love them. The first thing I learned when I began writing was you have to love your characters even if you hate them.
yeah,
Because if not, you will be too mean to them. You will make a cartoon of them. So I love all of them.
yeah. Um, there is a psychology in Marina. She wants to leave the family behind, and but at the same moment, she has this concern for the children. That she does not want to. She's risking a lot. Was it difficult to write those that internal conflict within her? I because those I mean the whole book, but those chapters on in which she's fighting within herself, I was reading very closely. I was reading very like every sentence mattered to me. Like what is she going to do? What is she? And and also I felt a little, and me as a reader, I felt responsible, and I felt there were very tough questions there. I can imagine as a writer when you go so deep in that struggle, the consciousness of a mother, of a lover. She's so many persona that that it makes you also like pause or think again, or because you have so much power, moral power.
I was a teacher for many years in the private universities, almost for 30 years. And I have seen wealthy young students become 60-year-old women. I'm that old.
Yeah,
So I have seen all this trajectory of their lives, of many of them. And I don't know if here in Holland or in Morocco, but for many women, the idea of happiness has to do with stability. And at least in Mexico, most people that come from the upper classes, they have to look for the good guy, not the passionate love, but the guy that's going to give you some stability. And it doesn't matter if he's fun or not, he's stable, he has a good job, he's a decent man. And suddenly they married this guy, and 20 years later, she's like, fuck, this is so boring.
yeah,
No? And what I'm going to do with this guy? I'm going to spend the rest of my life with him? And they say, yes, you have. You cannot divorce. Stability. You have a nest for your kids. You have to be a solid. And this woman who bought that idea of happiness, they began to become very unhappy and very bored. And they they sacrifice everything in order to keep the family together. It doesn't matter if you work, you're a liberated, a
yeah.
feminist. You have to keep your family solid. So many of them question. This book has been responsible of divorces. Yes, because it was this book won an important award in Mexico. I must tell you, and not in Mexico, in the Spanish-speaking countries. Is called the Alphaguara Award. It's a 700 novels tried to win this award from Argentina, Colombia, Spain, Mexico, and I was fortunate to win it. And it was a boom of the book during the pandemic. So unhappy women that leaves everything for a passionate love in the pandemic with the husband there. It's like, wow, go to work, please leave the house.
Yeah.
And so many, especially conservative women, read this book and they found out many things. Even with sex, I don't know what happened with Mexican husbands, but they are so boring with sex. Really, they are like rabbits. I don't know here in the Dutch, but they are like after 2 minutes. And in this book, there's an exploration of sexuality. It's an exploration of every hole in the body. It's an exploration of doing love while menstruating. And they were like shocked. They were like, is that possible? Many women were like, is that possible? And I have many Zoom book clubs. People we discovered some, and suddenly I was having uh, uh, clubs. There's a very important club in Mexico called El Librero de Valentina. She's like the most important booktuber in the Spanish speaking world.
Mm.
Every book she touches
Yeah.
becomes gold, and she recommended it. And suddenly I was having these book clubs with 300 people from all over, even from Ireland, Australia, and that helped the book to become
Yeah.
a success.
Um, in the book, for me, the most one of the most. I mean, a lot of, but there was one sentence that you say. Um, People always say Mexico is a surrealist country. They're quoting André Breton, who said it about
A surrealistic country.
surrealistic country. And then you say, but no, it's not. It's a hyper realistic country.
Yes.
And I found that for me, that was the key of the book. The hyper realism of society, of those dynamics in Mexican society are enormous. You know, you have, of course, a very powerful, potent neighbor, United States of America, who, in a way, create dynamic within Mexican society. Then you have your own, like 180 million people, Mexico with this all this regional diversity. Then the Mexico is it's between North America and Southern America. Then you have the indigenous populations. There's so much, and then you have the central state, Mexico City, which is in itself, it's not a country but universe. And you, so when in Mexico, I feel this, and it can be overwhelming, and it can also feel like I want to have my bubble. I don't want to be out there because the realism of my society is too much, and then that hyper realism, in a way, it is as if you as if that the thunder of the hyper realism of your society, it hit you, and you became like a transponder for it into language. Is Am I talking bollocks now, or what?
No, but in Mexico, when I say it's hyper realistic, is because really emotions are like more real. I love living in Mexico. It's more raw. I have more stories to tell. I was talking to my publisher Neleke Gil about what it's called the domestic uh, literature, very small literature that take places in very nothing happens, and everything is very domestic, which I appreciate. Is not a thing that I don't like those kind of novels, but Mexico is a country where a lot of things happen,
Yeah,
lot of things. So I cannot be isolated from what is going on in my country. As I say, it's hyper realistic, and it's very interesting. I think it's a very interesting country.
yeah,
Right now, we're having tough times,
yeah.
uh, very tough times. The government is doing things that are very dangerous uh, for society, like giving the military all the power.
Yeah. There was just a high military guy was caught involved in killing students just this week.
Yes, but yeah, but
That's one of the
that's gonna be very very. It's a complicated matter, the
Mm.
killing of the students. But Mexico is it's an interesting country. I invite you to come to my country. You will not be killed. You will be
Yeah.
kidnapped. We have not right now. We are having a great problem because the Americans discovered Mexico City,
Oh,
and they are moving. Thousands of them are moving to
yeah,
Mexico City. They discover they can work from their house. It's cheaper than the United States, and the rents are going. So go to Mexico City before that
yeah,
happens. But it's really interesting
yeah.
to. It's a really
Yeah.
interesting
Well, I
country.
found Mexico City. I found it in a way more exciting than New York. It was very, very nice. It it has its own dynamics, and I just loved it. I just loved the
And I
city.
must tell you something. It's the city with more museums in the world.
Yeah,
Is the second city with more art galleries in the world after New York, and it's the second city with more theaters after London.
yeah, yeah,
So it's a city full of culture.
yeah,
You have to
yeah,
come. We will take you around.
yeah. Totally agree. Um, can it is it true that in a country with where there are so many moral problems, economical attention and political, that literature is more appreciated, that people read your book anyway also in a prophetic way, utopian way. They read it as a mirror. They look for answers to their own daily life problems.
Something.
I mean, you already told me also that it has better the sex life of a lot of readers, but is there another dimension to it?
No, something. I think that every society, every society in the world is very complex, and it has a lot of virtues and defects. And what I think our job as writers is to be truthful to that complexity of the human condition, of all the paradoxes that are
Mm.
in human condition. I think that uh, what really represents the nature of the humanity is contradiction.
Yeah,
Every human being contradicts himself. People that say, I will never be unfaithful, and next day is like, oh, wow,
yeah,
this woman. Mm. Or that says, I will never be corrupt, and suddenly they come to power and say, like, well, a little bit of money. There are some contradictions in that we should explore. And I always think that art makes you look to another place you've never looked. It's like if, all of my life I've been watching there, and how beautiful
yeah,
is here, and suddenly a book pushes you and say like, wow, there's a TV here. I never imagined there was a TV.
yeah.
And the greatest books make you go 360, and the masterpieces after making all of that make you go inside yourself.
Yeah. I interviewed 2 days ago Orhan Pamuk in Amsterdam, the Nobel Prize winner and writer, and he said something in a way similar. He said, Literature makes you makes something that is very far away become very familiar, imaginable." And I thought, well, yeah, that's indeed what I had with reading your novel. That it's a world that's very far away, but reading it, it felt very, very close by. It felt very, the world presented and the moral dilemmas presented, very human, and the contradictions are many, and you get the chance to be part of that contradiction and to think about what would you do. What would you do in those circumstances? Are we all heroes? Are we all cowards? Are we all violent,
No,
innate?
and I think that the purpose of art is that those things that was really far away, it comes close to you, and suddenly you realize that that thing that you thought was far away, it's
Yeah,
also inside you.
yeah,
No, just yesterday with the inmates, some of them were murderers. You cannot imagine they were murderers.
yeah,
What suddenly make them become a murderer? Why a banker suddenly becomes a murderer? You know why? So violence, it's also inside all of us. Is that we don't have the circumstances that will push the violence. But I have seen very nice women, very soft. When someone threats their kids, they can kill. Really, I think women like, you touch my kid and I will fucking cut your balls off, and I will fucking kill you. And it's like, and the guy is okay, okay, that's
mm.
okay.
Other questions?
Not so many, please don't.
We
One
have
by
one.
one,
We have 1 minute.
one
We
by
have
one.
1 minute. Yeah. Yes.
First of all, thanks. Two great novels. Great pleasure. Um, I live in this country for 59 years now, and I think it's comfortable countries in the world. But I just heard you say, cut up your balls. So talking about that, in one of the horrible scenes in the book, I had down for 1 or 2 times saying this is real. I think a guy gets his balls, his cojones twisted off. And I hope to think that to saying it makes things imaginable. Well, this for me is something like hardly imaginable. I live in an environment where I think this is something of the last century. In this stuff like this happens still around the world, do you think we will ever live in a time where this is unimaginable or not happen?
Got the bolts off. You know something that comes from my experience in an American prison. I was having a tour by the guard, and he said, "You know what is this? This is the annex. The ¿cómo se dice? Las marcas del the
The littekens, scarves,
well, no, in the floor,
cutting,
the marks,
marks.
the
Yeah,
marks of the." And he told me that in the prison there was someone they believe it was a snitcher, so they cut the bolts off of him in an American prison, not a Mexican prison. They put the bolts in. They make him swallow them. They put a masking tape, and then they cut his head, and they play soccer with his head in the United States.
they do this on
And
Monday
and
morning.
and
Yeah,
that and
just
that
before
happened.
breakfast. Yeah,
That happened
yeah,
15 years ago.
yeah.
So and
But
but let me
yeah,
say, just read the news about what the Russians are doing to the Ukrainians.
mm,
It's
mm,
kind of.
yeah. What 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 is what's I mean, the cruelty is there, but what's amazing about uh, the prison is it's how also how complicated the system is within the hierarchies, the how it functions, how the corruption it's almost like an and how do you call it, multinational. It's like business. You know, you can imagine that someone like Siebert van Linde, who was in the media now in Holland, you know, he's like a slick, full entrepreneur who thinks himself, but he's looking for opportunities, that he would function perfectly in a system like that because it brings opportunities, and someone who's clever and knows how to do the personal relationship with people and knows where the danger is and knows how to calculate his chance, he can go very far. And what is good about it is that it comes through us through Marina. It comes through us to a woman we can all relate to, who becomes part of that system, and she goes very, very far to get what she wants, her lover, by becoming part of that, of the bribery. And it's I mean, the whole bribery and what she's being offered and what to pay, that's like a chapter, maybe 25 pages, but it's so fascinating to read how the guy, the capo in the prison, offers her all kind of services. She can even get a chef from a Michelin star restaurant to cook for her.
Yeah, I once have a friend who went to visit another friend that is in the prison, and he said they have like a, a four-entry dinner with oysters and lobster inside the prison. Say, and there was this chef, and I say, like, really? Yeah, really. And they have this covered in the Mexican prisons and Venezuelan prisons and Brazilian prisons, jacuzzis, uh, TVs, uh, billiard tables, pool tables. I don't know if it happens here, but in Mexico and Brazil and Colombia and Venezuela and the third world countries, it happens a
Yeah,
lot. You have money, you can even build your own
yeah.
apartments. No, hola.
You are Mariana. Yeah.
But also very translated because I think I always struggle with expressing myself in Dutch that I'm learning in the language really close to Mexico. And I thought, how could I explain myself in Dutch in a way that is close to me? So I'm very looking forward to read the Dutch translation and hopefully integrate it.
Yeah.
Might take also 3 years to get there.
Okay. Oh, oh, thank you very much, Mariana. I must tell that I invented 300 words, and I have the translators of very serious countries asking me, where can I find this word? Nowhere. It's invented. What it means, and I have to explain what it means. And then I invent books and authors. And for example, the Germans, I cannot publish this because I don't have the rights of this book. You have the rights of this book. Why? Because it doesn't exist. I invented it. So there are many authors in my books who are not existent. In the Tembari, I have people. I wrote up. It's Unforgiveness is the name of a book of a Jewish German, and everyone tries to buy the book, but the book doesn't exist. It's in. I invented it.
You're also part of a Latin American tradition of inventing ficciones. It's a
Yes,
Borgesian play,
yeah,
of course, and
yeah. Borges was an inspiration, of
yeah,
course, to invent these kind of things.
yeah, beautiful. Okay, I think yeah, there's a question. Does it feel the same writing a screenplay for film or writing a novel like this?
For me, is basically literature, and I write the screens plays with the same care that I put on a novel with the language and everything. No. By the way, I in Babel I wrote about Morocco without doing any kind of research to Morocco and without being in Morocco ever.
You
But
know, the interesting thing about Babel, I saw it in the cinema, is that it starts in Morocco in the High Atlas, and what I found very interesting, it's one of the first movies in the made in the West with Moroccan background where the people speak Berber, speak Tamazight. They don't speak Arabic, and it was like, oh wow, this is very very realistic, because people in that region would not speak Moroccan; they would speak Berber, and it made the movie from the beginning very very convincing. So I was thinking, did you think about this, about that they had to speak the native language of the region?
you know something, I wrote thinking of I was writing thinking of Mexican goat keepers with the language of Mexican goat keepers. I wrote it like that, and I say this should be the same as Moroccans. And the Berber decision was because of going to the Atlas Mountains and finding these kids, and from then there was a decision to make it in Berber.
Cool. But I can imagine that you have in this novel much more freedom than in a screenplay.
I I think I have also freedom in the
Okay.
in screenplays. For example, in 21 grams, I wanted to take novelistic structures to cinema.
Hmm.
When I wrote Amores Perros, I have a car accident, which explained how my face ended like this. I have a very hard car accident. We fell in a mountainous road. We fell in a abyss, or I don't know how you say it, deep down, and I was sleeping in the car when it happened. So I wake up in the middle of the accident. It was like a free fall, like 14 meters free fall, and then it was go boom, one turn, another, and I woke up in the my face hit a rock. I was sleeping with no seatbelt, so I was going, and my first thought is like, we're gonna die, and my second thought was like, no way I'm gonna die. So I crunched, and it was like several turns of the car until it stopped, and this is a complete reconstruction of my nose. It disappeared. All of these bones disappeared into my brain. I have a brain hemorrhage, and because of that, I have amnesia. And I was obsessed with what happened before the accident, what happened during the accident and what happened after the accident, which is the structure of Amores Perros.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the structure also of the Sound and the Fury. And I say, if I can write a screenplay as the Sound of the Fury, I will be very happy. And then when I was young, I have a roommate that was going to the Olympics as a rower. And I was so jealous of him. Like, I want to go to an Olympics or a World Cup. So I say, well, I play good basketball, but I'm too old to make part of the team. Football, I am very bad. But I used to fight in the streets every fucking day. So maybe I can be a heavyweight boxer. I know that here in Holland I'm a dwarf, but in Mexico I was tall. I was 188. So I can box. And I began training to go to the Olympics. And I began feeling a pain in my chest. Okay. And pain in my chest. And I go to the doctor, say, you have a little muscular problem. So I trained that day. And that night I was like, oh, this is not good. I thought a cat went into my left arm and it was biting it. And and it was so strange. Everything was strange happening to me. And I couldn't even move. So I called my mom. I was living by myself with this famous roommate. Say, Mom, I cannot even walk. Can you please help me? So she took me to a cardiologist. And he said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is you are not hypochondriac. The bad news is that you have an infection in your heart. So, and he said, if the infection turns inside the your heart, you will need a heart transplant. So I have all these thoughts of life, and that become 21 grams. The structure of 21 grams of going back and forth.
Yeah.
So I had freedom. Writing a screenplay, I had to write whatever I want with very strange structures. So for me, is writing novels. I say I don't write screenplays, but I write novels for the screen.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, thank you for Ms. Arriaga, we're at the end of this talk.
No, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
I hope you will do some book signing. Thanks for this wonderful. Well, it's monumental. It's like 19th century Tolstoyan storytelling,
Oh, thank you very
and
much.
yeah, thanks for
And
the
thank you for taking the time. Thank you for reading it, and thank you
yeah.
for this intelligent dialogue I have with you.
Thank you, thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Guillermo Arriaga.